I've been building my own kingdom for everyone to see. It exists to keep me safe from harm, and it's intact to glorify me. Nobody helped me build this up. It was me and me alone. I've appointed myself as the king, and I've given myself the throne. But it turns out I'm no ruler, and I have no control. So I have decided to destroy it all. I'm tearing down the walls, kicking down the doors. Everything inside this kingdom is yours. 'Cause what I've made is worthless, and it cannot stand. Come and breathe some life into my empty, cold, dead hands. Down with the fickle king, away with this fantasy. You are the one I need. Death to the kingdom of me. Death to the kingdom of me. I should probably be frightened. This empire's all I know, but it always does more damage than good. I'm afraid it's gotta go. I know that I can't be trusted, 'cause I'm just a man. And if you hadn't given your life for me, a loser would be all that I am. You know they say just follow your heart. I'm afraid that's a load of trash. Your heart will take you down to deep, dark places where you feel like you'll never come back. So I'm coming out of the dark. This facade is I woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up. Yeah, I woke up feeling like it might be a good day to get it done. That's right. Oh, the stadium is just like my second house. Now I'm two-tone talking, they can't shut my mouth. I woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up. Yeah, 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 yeah. I woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up. All right, welcome to the Two-Tone Talk by God Pod, episode 146, and we are ready to talk a little bit about the Tennessee Titans, ready to talk a little bit about the offseason as we have now entered into the month of February. Oh my goodness, the Super Bowl is this Sunday. It's the Chiefs versus the Eagles. Who could possibly care? And we are 1 month closer to the Tennessee Titans playing football again. So here we go. And really, I mean, listen, I know it feels early in the offseason, but you got to think free agency going to start back up next month, right? Then the next month is the draft. These are a couple of exciting months coming up. I mean, let's be honest. It's the summer is really when it starts dragging. That's when we really want football back, is in the summer, because now free agency's, you know, the wave has kind of gone by, the draft is over, and now we just got to wait until August when preseason football. So that's when it starts dragging. But these months we're about to go into gets pretty interesting, going to be pretty exciting. So let's talk about some of the events of today. We're going to talk a little bit about one of the big stories out there today, and we're going to talk about how to address some of the issues with the Tennessee Titans defense. On Friday, we did an episode talking about how to fix the Tennessee Titans offense in 2025. Today, we're talking about the defensive side of the ball. And let's start with the key topic of the day, which is Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett has put out a statement expressing that he would like to be traded from the Cleveland Browns. Myles Garrett is 29 years old. And listen, I understand how great of a player Myles Garrett is. Myles Garrett is just one of the best. Myles Garrett's a freak. In no universe does it make sense for the Tennessee Titans to trade for Myles Garrett at this time. And I fully understand how great of a player he is, but there is absolutely no world where that makes sense for Tennessee right now. We gotta figure out who the heck's gonna be our franchise quarterback. We gotta figure that out. We got to figure out how to score points. We've got to figure out how to address some of this other stuff. To just go, I mean, you got to keep in mind, there are people who are insinuating that the Titans could give up their first and their second, well, trade back from 1 to 2 in the first round, and then give up their second round pick for Myles Garrett. Do you know we already don't have a third round pick because of the trade for L'Jarius Sneed? So you want us to not have a pick in the second or third round? You think that's worth it? It's not. And even some people saying we should give up next year's second round draft pick for Myles Garrett. That's not, we can't be doing that. We can't be doing that. If we were an edge rusher away from being Super Bowl contenders, then absolutely you would do it. I think it would be a great trade for the Green Bay Packers to do. I think there are a number of teams who are an edge rusher away from taking the next step. The Tennessee Titans, they need edge rushers, yes. We're going to talk about that in a second. But to make a big trade for Myles Garrett, and you also have to keep in mind, Titans have already made 2 major money deals last offseason that at least one of them has not aged well. You've got Calvin Ridley, $92 million, and I thought Calvin Ridley had a good little season when you consider what he had to work with. But there are a lot of people who feel like we overpaid for Calvin Ridley, and at this time, it's hard to argue. And then the one that really looks bad is the trade for L'Jarius Sneed, paying him $74 million, and he was a total bust in year one. So you're going to do another big money deal for Myles Garrett. I just don't think that makes sense for the Titans, especially when Mike Morganzi and Chad Brinker have said, we want to build this team up through the draft. Yes, you have to get free agencies. Yes, free agents, rather. You have to make trades. But we want to rebuild this team through the draft. We want to build up this roster through the draft primarily. The Titans have tried going out and making big trades and free agents. Myles Garrett is a phenomenal player, but Myles Garrett, it wouldn't make sense for Myles Garrett either. I mean, Myles Garrett's 29 years old. He's still in his prime. He's one of the, best defensive players in the NFL. Why would he want to leave Cleveland to come to Tennessee? I mean, come on. It's not the right move. It is not the right move for the Tennessee Titans. I know when you see a player the caliber of Myles Garrett suddenly become available, everybody just says, oh, we need to get him. But it's a little more complex than that. There's nothing to gain. There's nothing to gain by making a trade for Myles Garrett. Yeah, you'd be getting a great player, but with all the other issues the Titans have, I mean, if we had a franchise quarterback, if we had a franchise quarterback and we were, already a playoff team that just needed to take the next step, then yeah, absolutely. It'd be something you'd be interested in. But at this time, no, makes no sense. Looking at the chat, I know we're talking about defense today, but some of you guys want to talk about offense. Titan South, did you hear Callahan comparing Shedeur Sanders to Joe Burrow? Yeah. Oh. I don't know if I've ever looked at Shedeur Sanders, and I don't think Shedeur's bad, but I've never looked at Shedeur and thought That's Joe Burrow right there. Luke says Cam Ward is the far better. He is the better quarterback prospect. It's not close. The more tape you watch, the guy's a winner. I have become much more intrigued on the idea of Cam Ward, just like you. Trey says I would be down to give up Jeff Simmons and a fifth. You talk about for Myles Garrett? If Cleveland gave up Myles Garrett for Jeff Simmons and a fifth-round pick, they need to just burn the stadium down in Cleveland. That would be about like what the Dallas Mavericks did over the weekend. Trading Luka Doncic. I mean, that's one of the craziest trades. And I'm a Lakers fan. So, yeah, I was glad to see it, but I can't believe the Mavs did that. But that's about what that would be, is if the Browns traded Myles Garrett for Jeff Simmons and a fifth. That's about what that would be like. So, now that we got the Myles Garrett thing out of the way, how do you address this Tennessee Titans defense? Because this defense gets a lot of credit for how good they were this season. But for those of us that watch the game, we know the truth. There's a lot of issues with this defense. A lot of really terrible performances. Couldn't get to the passer at all. Injuries, yes, but tackling was poor. I think some of it had to do with Denard Wilson. I thought some of his game plans in certain games were just not good. Could not possibly stop a mobile quarterback at all. We got ate up on the ground by guys like Sam Darnold, Drake May ate us up. So there's some issues schematically, coaching-wise on defense that need to get better, just like on offense. But personnel-wise, let's start with edge rush, since we're talking about Myles Garrett, which would be a ridiculous trade for the Titans to do. Just absurd. So you have Harold Landry and Arden Key. I thought Arden Key had a pretty good season for the Titans, but I also, Arden Key's a good rotational player to have. I don't think Arden Key is a starter on a lot of teams. I think he's a low-level starter. He's a low-end starter. I think you need somebody better than Arden Key to start, for the Titans. And I'm honestly worried about Harold Landry as well. I love Harold Landry, but Harold Landry started the season really well, and then he just kind of tampered off and didn't do much of anything in the second half of the season. So I have not eliminated the idea that the Titans could possibly trade Harold Landry for the right price. Now, I don't think you're going to get a fortune in return for Harold Landry, but you might get something of value. I still think Harold Landry is a possible trade candidate for the Tennessee Titans this offseason. But either way, whether you keep both of those guys, whether you keep one of those guys, whether you get rid of them both, you have a major need at edge rush. You have a major need because the Titans could not get to quarterbacks this season, and you have to be able to do that. So, obviously, the first name that comes to mind is Abdul Carter. Obviously, the Titans have the first pick in the draft. They could draft Abdul Carter with the first pick. If you do that, if you draft Abdul Carter, then yeah, you could come back in 2025 with Abdul Carter on one side, Harold Landry on the other, and let's go. You could come back, if you trade Landry, you could come back with Abdul Carter on one side and Arden Key on the other, and it would probably be an improvement, although I would still like to see somebody better than Arden Key in there starting the game. There's nobody else currently on this roster that moves me to think that they could be something. I am not moved by Jalen Harrell, God bless him. I am not moved by Caleb Murphy, God bless him. We need somebody, that can consistently get to the quarterback. I mean, you just got to have it. So, yeah, you could draft Abdul Carter in the first round, and that would cure a lot of this. But if you don't draft Abdul Carter, if you draft one of the quarterbacks, if you draft Travis Hunter, okay, do you go edge rush in the second round? That now becomes a possibility. Now, James Pierce, a lot of people think James Pierce is the second best edge rusher in this draft from Tennessee, I believe. I don't think he's still going to be there by the second round. I don't think he's still going to be on the board. I'll tell you who I really like at edge rush in this draft, as I drop my phone. Who I really like in this draft at edge rush is Jack Sawyer from Ohio State. Really like him. And he's kind of a second round projection, late first, early second, maybe mid second. I like Jack Sawyer. I could see Jack Sawyer still being there as an option. But even if it's not him, if there's somebody else you're thinking of, the Titans could go edge rush in the second round. That's what's going to be interesting. Whatever they do in the first round, whatever they do, whether they draft a quarterback, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, whoever they draft, they're going to have a decision to make with their second round pick. Do you draft an offensive tackle? If you didn't draft a wide receiver in the first round, do you draft a wide receiver in the second round? If you didn't draft an edge rusher in the first round, like if you took Cam Ward in the first round, okay, let's just say Titans take Cam Ward. Then you get to the second round, what do you do with that pick? You could go edge rush, you could go offensive tackle, you could go wide receiver, and any of those would make sense for Tennessee. Any of them. It really sucks that the Titans don't have a third round pick. Really does. And they could still get one. They have some draft capital with later picks, so maybe the Titans could trade up into the third round and get somebody. But as of right now, the Titans don't have a third round pick. And that sucks because whatever you do in the second round, unless you trade up into the third, you've now got to sit there through the entire rest of the second round, the entire third round, and you don't get to pick again until the fourth. That sucks. And this is the second year in a row we've had to deal with that because we didn't have a third round pick last year either. So that sucks. But the Titans are going to have a decision to make. There are some guys that edge rush wise, if you don't take Abdul Carter in the first round, you could get a really good edge rush guy. There's a lot of good edge rushers in this draft that you could get in the second round. Getting one in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, I'm not crazy about that because we've already got Jalen Harrell. We've already got the late round undrafted guys. We need some difference makers at edge rush. We need some difference makers. We need some dudes who can get after it and get to the quarterback. And I don't think you're going to find that. Odds are you're not going to find that in 6th and 7th round picks. You need not just a guy to come in every now and again and play one play and then go to the sideline. You need a guy that can make a difference. That could be Abdul Carter. That could be a second round pick. But when you look at free agents, I mean, Khalil Mack, a lot of people have him listed as the top edge rush free agent. I know you hear Khalil Mack and the first thing you think of is, wasn't he in his prime like 5 years ago? Hassan Reddick from the Jets, Chase Young from the Saints, Josh Sweat from the Eagles, DeMarcus Lawrence from the Cowboys. I mean, yeah, any of those guys, I can see some of those guys being better than Arden Key. It's just, man, the edge rush situation for Tennessee is similar to the wide receiver situation. You need some youth. And Harold Landry's gotten older. Arden Key has been in the league a while. They really need to address this in the draft. They really need to address edge rush in the draft. And yeah, you can get a veteran edge rusher to provide you some depth. But that's the only reason I'm against trading Harold Landry is because they are so weak at edge rush. And you can only do so much in one offseason to address it. But I will say, if any money that the Titans have to spend, edge rush would be a good place to put some of that money. I mean, the edge rush would be a good place to invest in because it's that important. It's one of the most important positions on the team. Defensive tackle. I know some people are mentioning that the Titans could trade Jeffrey Simmons. It's possible. I don't think they're going to. I think you're going to have Jeffrey Simmons and T'Vondre Sweat both back, and I'm excited about that, but they need depth on the defensive line. They need depth. And good news for them, this draft is very deep at defensive tackle. I think the Titans could get a major contributor at defensive tackle in the 4th round of the draft, in the 5th round of the draft. I could see the Titans getting some difference makers at defensive tackle in the 4th and 5th round. 100%. That's good. And then you could always get a veteran. I'm talking about, there's Calais Campbell. He's obviously been around a while, most recently in Miami. B.J. Hill, Tierre Tart. Hello. He's a free agent. Remember him? Tarshawn Wharton, I will say the only reason I put his name down is because he's from Kansas City. Obviously, the ties to Mike Borgonzi. Anytime I see a player of need, a position of need for the Titans from Kansas City, I'm going to mention him because of the ties to Mike Borgonzi. Same with Cincinnati and Brian Callahan. I think it's worth mentioning, but I think the Titans, they need defensive tackle depth behind Simmons and Sweat. You could get a good value guy late in the draft, I think, at defensive tackle. And then, similar to what they did with Sebastian Joseph Day last offseason, you go out, you get a veteran like that to just come in. Because I think they actually got pretty good production from Sebastian Joseph Day, considering what he was brought in to be. Trey says he would cut Harold Landry for Khalil Mack. I mean, I think a lot of people might agree with you. You look at some of these veteran edge rush guys, you would look at and you would say, they're old, they're washed. But a lot of people might start to say that about Landry. After watching him this year, I mean, he started off great. The first month, he was really good. He had sacks every week, and then it just kind of went away. Inside linebacker, first of all, if it's up to me, I'm saying goodbye to Kenneth Murray. I don't see any need to keep him around. I mean, they probably got as good of production. If you do keep him around, I don't want him as a starter. I want him as a rotational guy. I want him as a guy who comes in for a play. I mean, and you blitz him and then you send him back to the sideline. I don't want Kenneth Murray continually having to be in the game for Tennessee if he's here. I'd like to see Gibbons back. I thought Jack Gibbons was playing really well before he got hurt. Terrible injury, but I thought Gibbons was actually giving him good production at linebacker. The bottom line is who you really need to come along is Cedric Gray. That's a guy that the Titans are going to need. If you want to know a guy to really have your eye on, Cedric Gray is one of them. Like, they're going to need him to do something, not just be a special teams guy. They're going to need Cedric Gray to give them good production at inside linebacker because, I mean, he was a third-round pick, right? No, fourth. He didn't have a third. He was a fourth-round pick. So it's not like they just got this guy at the bottom of the barrel, seventh round. He's a fourth-round pick, and a lot of people considered Cedric Gray to be a real steal for the Titans. Started the year hurt, mostly played some special teams, got some reps late in the season because so many guys were hurt. But Cedric Gray, that's a guy that you're going to need to come in and play well. I don't think the Titans are going to be in a position to address linebacker in the draft. I just don't. I think there's too many needs. I think there's some guys they could pick up in free agency that could help them out. And I'll tell you who I'd really like to see him get. I'd like to see him bring back Ernest Jones is what I'd like to see. Ernest Jones, you remember, he was here. We picked him up. We traded for him from the Rams. He played here like the first 6 weeks and played really well. One of our best defensive players when he was here. And then we traded him to Seattle, and he went and he played well for Seattle. Now he's a free agent again. And I said this immediately after the Titans traded him. They need to bring him back next season. I liked Ernest Jones. I liked the way he played. I would like to see the Tennessee Titans go bring Ernest Jones back to Nashville is what I'd like to see. But outside of him, some of the premier names in free agency, Bobby Wagner, Levante David, Dre Greenlaw, Nick Bolton from the Chiefs. So that's why I mentioned Nick Bolton from Kansas City, ties to Mike Borgonzi. Again, I feel like you need a calming veteran presence at linebacker. I mean, you're right in the middle of everything. A lot of times you're calling the shots. You're kind of calling out the plays. They call it the quarterback of the defense almost. You need a guy who can take charge. And as much as I like Jack Gibbons, as much as I have hope for Cedric Gray, I think right now the Titans need a veteran presence from the linebacker group. So I would, Trey says he's high on Bobby Wagner, big culture green dot guy. Yeah, the Titans, and that's why I liked having Ernest Jones, because I felt like Ernest Jones was that for Tennessee in the limited amount of time he was here. So I'd like to see Ernest Jones come back, but that'd be my best suggestion. I really liked him. But I think the Titans are going to have to sign a vet at linebacker because Cedric Gray is a question mark right now. Jack Gibbons is a kind of like the Nick Westbrook-Akine of the defense. But the Titans need to just get away from Kenneth Murray, I think. Corner. Really not much to say about this. I think the Titans kind of have who they have. I mean, you're pretty much married to L'Jarius Sneed at this point. I don't think anybody's taken on that contract, so I think you've got Sneed at least another year. You better hope it works out because we gave up. We're paying that guy. So L'Jarius Sneed's going to be back. We're very excited about Jarvis Brownlee. I thought Cheeto Awuzie, spent a lot of the season hurt, but he played well when he was in there, especially late in the year. I just wonder, could the Titans possibly trade Roger McCreary? I can't help but wonder. Last year of his rookie deal, good player. But if they got the right offer, I just wonder, because you've kind of got four guys there. Brownlee started most of the year, and I think they've got high hopes for him based on how he played. I know McCreary's more of a slot guy. And you also, I don't know if Cheeto Awuzie would be a possible trade candidate for the Titans. I don't know. I think he signed a 3-year deal. He's got 2 years left. I don't know. But I just wonder if the Titans could trade one of their corners this offseason, because Jarvis Brownlee, Evan said there's an out in Awuzie's contract after year 2. So after this upcoming 2025 season. They could trade somebody from the secondary because Brownlee, just corner, there's less wiggle room just because Sneed, you're pretty much married to him right now. You can divorce him a little later, but for right now, you're married to him. And then Jarvis Brownlee, you got high hopes for him. I just wonder if McCreary or Awuzie could be a possible trade candidate. Safety-wise, the Titans have a need there at free safety. Amani Hooker is probably going to be back. I wonder about a guy like Justin Simmons, played for the Falcons this year. Jevon Holland, the Dolphins. You got the Honey Badger from the Saints. The reason I keep saying, at positions like inside linebacker and safety, I think they're going to have to go with a veteran free agent, because I think you've just got major needs in quarterback, wide receiver, right tackle, edge rush. Those 4 positions right there, that's 4 that you just have to do something about that. You can talk about how, we need more depth at running back. We'd like to have more depth at tight end. We'd like to have more depth at defensive tackle and inside linebacker. And eventually you need to get around to that. But when you have the big 4, as I will call it, quarterback, right tackle / just offensive line in general, wide receiver, edge rush, that's 4 big ones. That's the 4. You could argue that and corner are the 5 most important positions on a team. So the Titans have got to figure that stuff out. And when I look at those 4, you need to address all of them in the draft, but you just don't have a 3rd rounder. So that's going to be tough. What kind of value can you get in rounds 5, 6, 7? It sucks that it didn't work out with Will Levis. It sucks. And this is part of for many reasons, but one of the reasons why is if Will Levis had been really good, we wouldn't even have to think about quarterback right now, and we would know we can address 2 of these deals. If you didn't have to worry about quarterback, you could take Abdul Carter in the 1st round. You could take a good wide receiver in the 2nd, or a good offensive tackle in the 2nd, and you've already covered 2 of your major needs. But now with Will Levis not working out, now you have to insert the biggest need of all, which is quarterback. And I hate that. I hate that the Titans are in that position. I hoped that Will Levis would be the guy for years to come, but this is why a lot of people were so bummed out when it didn't work out with Will Levis, is because they knew what it meant. It meant now the quarterback position comes to the forefront, and we've got to put all these other major needs on hold because we got to fix that before we can fix the rest. So Titans have a lot to do. Titans have a lot to do this offseason. Mike Borgonzi, Chad Brinker, they have got their work cut out for them. And we're going to be here every step of the way on Two Tone Talk. I'll be back Friday to talk about the Super Bowl and preview that and talk about whatever new may be going on in Titans world. Appreciate you guys joining me. This is the Two Tone Talk by God pod. Staying way too high on the wins, way too low on the losses. God bless you, everybody. Tighten up. Bye.